Hi, we're here with Jeff Willis. Jeff is a filmmaker and has created several documentaries. Welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, it's great to be here.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So can you just tell us a little bit about your documentaries? Just give us a little bit of background so our viewers can get to learn more about you.
Sure. Well, when I was a young kid, I had some experiences in the UFO field. And so later on in life, I kind of seek these things out to find out what they were. And in the early 90s, I saw a program about this guy, John Bro, that can videotape UFOs in the daylight by blocking the sun out with the house and zooming into the corona with his camera. And his name was John Bro Wilkie. And I just kind of followed what he did. And I started getting results right away. I set up my camera, did exactly what he did, and I started videotaping UFOs. And like after 5 years, I had enough material to produce my first documentary, UFOs Over Phoenix, Volume 1. And it was just called UFOs Over Phoenix because I didn't know I was going to keep getting more footage. But
Right.
Soon there was a Volume 2 and then a Volume 3, and now I'm on the fifth project actually, which is a DVD documentary with other Skywatchers, what other Skywatchers have shot, which has added my own footage from last year.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And you said you also, did you write UFO Hunters or co-write?
Yes, well, what we did was me and Pat Uskert, we wanted to do a documentary together. So we shot this documentary and we called it UFO Road Trip, and we put some clips on our YouTube channel. And they started going viral, right away. And Bill Burns was looking at what we were doing, and he told us to put it all on a disc, and he was going to, take Pat with him over to History Channel and see if they can pitch it. And the negotiations went for about a month or so, and finally they decided that they were going to buy the show and call it UFO Hunters.
Wow.
And they wanted Pat on the show, and they offered me a job too, but I couldn't do it, so I just appeared on the show twice as a guest,
wonderful.
which was cool.
So with all of these documentaries you've created, which is the most compelling piece of footage that you've collected? I bet you can't even get that down to one, right?
Yeah, there's so many of them, but I've probably shot like 3 pieces of footage, which I think are smoking gun videos, because I mean, there's nothing else it could be but an alien craft. I mean.
So what is it about it that you say that it can't be debunked or?
Well, one of them is a clear saucer-shaped object that looks like a flying saucer. It flies like a flying saucer, and when I get it on video, it takes up the entire TV screen. So I mean, it's like, there's no doubt about it. And the way it flies is it's flipped up on its side, and it flies like this over my house. And it does a U-turn like this, and then it shoots off in another direction. And that was featured on an AMP mobile program called Paranormal News, and with April Scott, and it's gotten like 3 million hits. And it was only a mobile app show on a cell phone network.
Right.
And it just took off.
So I'm fascinated. How many UFOs have you actually captured personally over Phoenix?
I lost track a long time ago.
That's incredible.
I have a stack of DVDs of just raw footage, and they're all AVI files. Probably like 50 CDs with probably like, anywhere from 50 to 100 sightings on each one.
But then other people like myself, I think I've seen 2, but they weren't really as UFOs. I think they were either disguised as something else or it wasn't a UFO. But is Phoenix a hotspot?
That's what I was just going to ask.
Yeah, Phoenix has always been a hotbed for UFO activity, since the early days, before March 13th, 1997, way before that. And it was proven by those sun technique videos that UFOs are actually a high altitude phenomenon that occurs every day and every night. The lower ones will come. The more you watch, it's almost like they will recognize that you're trying to get video of them, and they'll start coming lower, and you'll start getting better footage, and then it's to the point where I didn't need to use the solar technique anymore. I just completely turn my back on the sun and aim the camera at a completely different direction and start capturing UFOs without the technique. And it moved from that to night footage, like triangle footage. I shot
Yeah.
some triangles, boomerangs, as well as the weird ones with portholes, you know, around.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, I mean, so they're all different shapes and sizes?
Yeah.
Would this still be from, do you think the theory of, is it one alien race or lots of different alien
Probably,
races?
I would say lots of different races coming from lots of different places, and you know, a lot of them could even be time travelers.
Oh my gosh, now you're going to get me
Yeah.
started. Before I like leap into that, because now you're going to take us right off on tangents. What is it about Phoenix then that makes it a particular hotspot?
Well, a lot of people say there's a lot of vortexes in Sedona, and the ley lines will produce certain ways for them to have wormholes to come easier here. But you know, I don't really know. I don't really have an answer to that one.
Right. No,
because
I didn't know if it was anything like it's not like the sky is clearer, or if is there a higher content of gold? Because I heard gold was maybe,
It could be.
you know.
I think if they really look at the statistics that UFOs are seen in every major city
Right.
across, you know, it doesn't matter what state or what country, you know, they're here, you know.
But
If
for
you
to
watch,
cap-
you'll see them.
For you to capture hundreds, I mean, how many
Right.
hours a day do you spend with your video camera?
Well, not very much anymore. Like I'll go on the weekends, I'll set it up for a few hours, but you don't need much time. Like that's maybe the thing about Phoenix is there's no clouds. and
That's
you
what
got
I was
clear blue
wondering.
sky.
That's why I was wondering.
And I think that's
Yeah.
what it is, because if there's a lot of clouds, then the UFOs are going to have to come underneath the clouds for them to
Right.
be visible. And the altitude that they're at is just probably, you know, barely above where the clouds would be. And with no clouds, I usually see a white orb, and I'll zoom in on it, looking. Well, first I'll look at it with binoculars, make sure it's not a
Right.
balloon with a string hanging off.
Right.
And then I'll put on the 5X and the high power lens and zoom into it, and it's, you know, most of the typical ones that I get are a white orb,
Right.
like just barely moving along in the sky.
Oh, maybe I have seen something. Is there, I noticed, this is only my second time to Arizona, there's like miles and miles of land with nothing going on.
Yeah.
So my other question is, are there less military bases here? So are they going to be less susceptible to being picked up on radar if they were coming over? It's just a theory.
Well, the thing about UFOs is what I believe is if they want to be seen on radar, they will be, and if they don't
Right.
want, they won't be. Because I mean, we have stealth technology. If we don't want people to know that they're flying
Good
around,
point.
you know.
Yeah, good point.
But
So you're thinking that instead of them using some kind of expensive fuel to find that energy or propulsion to keep a craft going, that maybe they're manipulating space and time and moving and transporting themselves through wormholes?
well, some of them, like in Area 51, the Bob Lazar case, he claimed that they worked with Element 115. Which, do you know anything about Element 115?
I personally don't know about Element 115.
Well, he was a guy that was shown 9 different saucers at Area 51, and he was given some books to look at that they said were given to them by beings from the Zeta Reticuli star system. And then he was shown the craft, and the books described the fuel was Element 115, which is an element that is not found on our planet, but it is produced in Zeta Reticuli, you know, and that's what they use as a fuel. And it's like about this big, you know, in a triangle form like that, and about that much. It's put into the reactor in the middle of the craft. Like there's a round circle inside the craft where you sit, and in the middle there's a reactor, and the lid comes off, the element 115 goes inside, the cap goes on, and that element 115 will fuel that ship for like a couple thousand years, you know, up to like 2,000 years. And what it does is the element 115 is released into antimatter. The antimatter, of course, space is not space. It's not just nothing. It's like it's a substance. Space is a substance that can be bent and warped with the antimatter. So what they do is they have a radar on the ship where basically they distort and warp space-time, and they pull the place where they want to go to where they are, and they put them together, and they release the antimatter, and then boom, they're where they want to be. And so in this way of travel, they can travel 32 light years which is how far Zeta Reticuli is to Earth, within like a matter of like 5 or 6 seconds. So you don't travel at a linear mode at the speed of light to get
Right.
there. You don't have to
Yeah.
go 32 years at the speed of light. They can just use that mode of travel. But there's probably other, if there's other species, they have probably other propulsion technology.
Right.
Think of maybe a species that's maybe 1 million years more advanced than these other people. So of course they're going to have a different way of thinking. But Zeta 1 and Zeta 2, it's a binary star system too.
How did they get that information?
Well, he was shown 9 saucers. I don't think they really told him much about where they got the information, but he was working in an area off the side of Area 51 called S4, which was designated for like alien technology, off-world, exotic type of research. And we are talking about Area 51. I mean, maybe they got of course, there was another guy that was a telepath for S4, and his job was to interrogate the alien. They would put the alien in a dark room, and with a piece of glass separating him and the telepath, and they would ask, a military commander would ask the alien a question, and then the alien would tell the telepath what the answer was, and then the telepath would tell the commander, what the alien's trying to tell him. And most of the conversation dealt about how the crafts work and duplicating. Their main job is trying to duplicate this with Earth technology, which can't be, to a certain extent it can be done, but to fully duplicate it the way they do, we would need to have the element 115. We'd have to have access to the materials that they make their crafts with, which is probably a different type of metal, and all sorts of stuff. But where I'm only talking about the Zeta Reticuli. I mean, people have claimed to be contacted by other beings, like Pleiadians.
Yeah, that was the next question I was going to ask you, is about, they talk about all these different alien races, the reptilians and the greys and the blondes and what's the one you just mentioned?
The Pleiadians.
Yeah, so again, are they getting this information telepathically? Or?
Yeah, that's the thing. I think that everybody assumes that where these beings are coming from because of the star systems out there, they just assume.
Right.
But the beings sometimes tell contactees who they are and where they're from, like the Billy Meyer incident, he was told that they were Pleiadians, they were from the Pleiadians. Or George Agamsky, he was told that they were like Venetians, and with satellites now, we know that there's nothing on Venus,
Right.
So were these entities real? Was this a hoax that he created, or did these entities lie to him about where they were from? Because they thought, it's only 1960, they don't know nothing about Venus, we'll just tell them we're from Venus, So it could have been on their part too, so.
That is interesting. I mean, just really amazing to think of all, and yet you have people being, if a politician goes out there and says, I believe in UFOs, the amount of ridicule that comes from the media, that's what I can't wrap my head around that. Why would there be such ridicule if you're coming forward with, you're talking this was a government area?
Yeah, Area 51, yeah.
So why such?
Well, I think a lot of people just aren't ready for it. The people that really consider and do the research about UFOs, they're high intelligent people. And if you notice in this conference, if you count all the people that attend this week, it's a very small number to the communities around the valley. This is a town of 5 million people. And if we get only a few thousand people here, that tells you a lot about where people's brains are in the world right now. They don't really think about ETs. That's the movies. The industry makes all these movies about aliens, and it's kind of like a desensitization, in a way. But when they go home after the movie's done, they don't want to think that it's real. And if you start trying to blend those worlds together to the normal person, they're not going to be able to put it together. But there's Travis Walton, he described an incident where he saw the gray aliens with the humans at the same time in the ship. So this shows that there's
That's
human there. It's working with the Zetas, or those gray-looking Zetas weren't Zetas at all. Those were some sort of biological android created by these other guys, so they don't have to risk themselves in our environment when they send them out to abduct somebody, you know. So something like that. So, you know, if like for instance, if you're being abducted and you shoot this thing, you know, it's a robot. You know, that way they don't get hurt. You know.
That's interesting.
But you know, that's never happened. So.
Have you had any personal experiences or close encounters? You have?
Yeah, that's what got me in this whole thing, really, is when I was 5 years old, I was laying in bed and something grabbed my hand, like real tight, and I turn on the light and I look and there's nothing there at all. And so the next morning, I told my mom about it, and I said, what could this, you know, what could that have been? And she said, well, it was probably your guardian angel, or it was Jesus. You know,
right.
I like
yeah, that's a nice mom answer.
And I liked the answers, but it didn't, and you know, it could have been true, but it didn't satisfy me. I wanted to know, well, you know, what's out there, because this is a little kid that just found out that there's somebody else in our physical reality that if they don't want to be seen, they won't be.
Right.
You know, and so that opened me up to a whole, you know, a new world. And so I started doing my research, you know, from that early age, like when I got in like the 3rd grade, in the library at school, I went to the older kids' books and looked around, and I started pulling books off the shelves like UFOs, and this was like 1978, you know, so this was a while back, you know, I was drawn to them. I opened up these books and I saw Billy Meyer's photos of these perfectly clear saucer-shaped objects shot in 1975, and this was just a few years, you know, after this book is, you know, before this, you know, this book has only been published, you know, a few years, and these great pictures that were recent at the time were in there. And to a young kid, that just fuels the fire of, you know, what is this?
Was that the only experience that you had?
Later, well, during the next couple of years, I had some other experiences where I'd wake up and it seemed like the ceiling was spinning above me. Like, yeah, and I couldn't. To this day, I almost look back at it and I think to myself, now I'm thinking, I don't think the ceiling was spinning. I think maybe I was like being levitated, and, you know.
Yeah. Have you tried any hypnotic regression to find out?
I did try one at one time.
Were you scared going
yeah,
into that?
I was scared because it started getting weird, and then I was broken out of the trance because of somebody knocked on the door, and it kind of messed everything up.
Oh,
I was in a regression, and I was reliving something that happened to me, and I believe it was like 1995. I believe it was, when I saw 2 beings at the bed, at the end of my bed. I heard a weird buzzing noise underneath my bed, like a toy. It sounded like a wind-up toy, like click, 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 click. And I was like, what is that? And right when I thought that, I was like totally paralyzed, and I could see like 2 figures at the end of each side of my bed, but I couldn't make out what they were. They were just like dark figures. And I immediately was knocked out, I guess, because I remember waking up and I look at the clock and it's like 3 hours after
So you had
the
missing
noise.
time
Yeah, I
too.
had missing time, exactly.
Did you have any puncture wounds, anything on your body?
Yeah, I have this mark right there. I don't know if you can see
Oh
that.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And another thing is in the
Just to describe, it's like a white circle
with
with little pinholes. It's almost like if you can imagine something was suctioned on and lots of little needles have gone through
right.
into the bicep.
Yeah.
And when I was in
How long ago was that?
this
95, you
was
said?
around 92 or so.
So you're
something
talking
like that.
11 years later
Yeah.
that you still have that scar.
Yeah, and also another one I noticed was in the, I believe it was around the same time period, like 95, I believe it was. I picked up Bud Hopkins' second book, The Incredible Visitations of
Yeah, I know which
yeah,
one
you
you're
know
talking
what I'm
about.
talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, of whatever valley it was. This girl, Kathy Jordan, I believe her name was. There was pictures in there of a scoop mark scar on her leg.
Oh,
Like a
wow.
little-
Yeah. Like
and
as if
so-
they'd taken
yeah,
this
like a little,
yeah.
and so I saw that and I thought, I have one of those too. and on my leg. But
Oh, you have a scoop mark
yeah,
too?
yeah, but that was the first time I saw a picture of that. And then I thought, well, maybe it's a coincidence of that one person and then me having it. But then I got Raymond E. Fowler's book about the Betty Andreasson case, and she has one too, same place. And also, her husband had one, and the picture in the book of her husband's. And then Bud Hopkins talked later in his book before that. I got the book before the Copley one of called Missing Time, Bud Hopkins' Missing Time. And I looked through that book and I seen more people with the same mark on the same spot.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so I was like, oh, there's something going on. And I've got it, it's right here. I don't know if you can see it. But
Right here, yeah. Yeah, and it's literally like,
It's the same spot as all of them in the same.
it's
they're
like
the same.
half the size of a fingernail, as if
Yeah.
somebody has scooped some skin to do some kind of biopsy or...
Yeah.
You were
What-
gonna
No,
ask?
just like, it's a bizarre spot, and it's the same one on everyone. I wonder
Yes.
what,
And what's very strange about it is these things throughout the 90s, they kind of died out. Like you don't hear stories of the aliens and
Right.
doing these same things that were
Right.
recorded throughout the 90s.
Right.
And it's kind of, it's a very strange pattern because in the 50s, the UFO people that were into, the enthusiasts, the contactees were contacted by humanoid people that call them space brothers, and that went through the 50s. In the 60s and early 70s, you had the Palladians, and then the 80s through the 90s, you had the Greys,
Right.
with the exception of the Barney and Betty Hill case of the Greys in 63 or whatever that was, early 60s. So there was that earlier case, but it almost seems like there are waves of these different beings, that are here through decades, and then it changes to these other guys, and now these other guys are here, and you don't hear about the Space Brothers anymore. You don't hear about the Palladians anymore. Now you barely hear much about the Greys anymore. Now you hear like humanoids, or even, which is an incredible case. It really baffles me. Do you remember the Calvin Parker case
No.
in Florida and Pensacola?
No.
Well, they were fishermen that were abducted in the early 70s by these aliens, and the description of the aliens had these spikes on each side of their head and one on the top.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I
And
did hear
those
about
aliens
that.
have never been, the sightings of these type of creatures, that was the only ever time they've ever been described like that, and to this day, no one's ever seen anything like that. So that case stands on its own.
What is it about, do you think there's some kind of selection process when these aliens are selecting which humans that they want to work with?
Yeah, I do. I really do. I think it probably has to do with, a little bit might have to do with DNA, and a little bit might have to do with, intelligence, I would think, because they don't
When you say DNA, they're looking for one specific thing, whether it's mental, intelligence, whether it's physical strength, whether it's enhanced psychic ability.
Right.
Is that what, or is there like a certain strain?
It may be, but I think that just the effect of ETs on a human can cause psychic abilities and stuff like that.
I
because,
heard that.
Yeah, because from an early age, I've had stuff like that. Like I would have a dream and then it would come true, or I would think of somebody and then they would call, things like that, like all the time. And then
And I guess you were so young when you had your first encounter that you can't really tell if you had enhanced psychic ability before you had that first encounter, or do you know?
Yeah, I do. I actually had some premonitions that took like 20 years, 30 years to happen even.
Really?
Yeah, it was very strange. When I was only like 7 years old, I believe I was 7 years old, I had something came in my mind, Dan Aykroyd kept on appearing in my mind, Dan Aykroyd over and over and over. I didn't even know who Dan Aykroyd was. And then somebody told, a few years later, I seen it on TV. Like I heard the name Dan Aykroyd. Okay, I thought, okay, now they're talking about this guy's voice or this guy's name that's in my head. Who is this guy? And so he's a comedian. I learned later he was a comedian. Then I learned he's a guy that's making fun of aliens with his Conehead movies and all this stupid stuff. Like, why did I know who this guy is before I knew who this guy was?
Right.
Okay, and then in 2006, I get a call from David Sarita. He says, hey, this is Jeff Willis, and I'm like, yeah. And he goes, yeah, I'm looking at your UFO videos that I really like them, and we want to use your videos on this new DVD we're working with Dan Aykroyd. called Dan Aykroyd Unplugged on UFOs.
And then there was like silence in your
Right.
chair, just hitting the
And
ground.
I was like, oh my God, you know, I couldn't believe it. And so, like, sure enough, they liked the videos, and Dan liked the videos. So, there's a video out there now, Dan Aykroyd Unplugged on UFOs, where Dan's sitting in a chair and David Cerrito's sitting in a chair, and they're talking about Dan's life, about why he's into UFOs, why he has a passion for them, and you know, and Dan, sure enough, has Men in Black experiences he talks about, and he goes on and on about all the things that he knows about UFOs, and then they are showing my footage in the background while he's talking and stuff like that, which is amazing.
That's
Another
so
one
cool.
happened that same, probably within that same 2 or 3 years, I believe. No, this one happened even before that, actually, now that I remember. This one happened about a year, about 1977. That other one was like 78, but this one was 1977. I was sitting in this movie, Race to Witch Mountain, or
Right, yeah.
Return to,
Yeah.
you know, the old, the
Right,
first ones.
oh, You're
Now-
calculating his age now.
Yeah. Well, I'm sitting in here watching this movie, and at the beginning of the movie, like, I'm thinking, I'm on this movie. And I'm like, why am I thinking, I'm getting a voice, like, in my head, in my mind, it keeps telling me, I'm on this movie, I'm on this movie. And I watched the whole movie, I'm not on this movie. And then the second one came out, like, 2 years later, and I'm sitting in the movie theater watching the second one, and it's doing it again, you're on this movie. I'm on this movie, I'm not on this movie. You know, I'm thinking, the movie's over, I'm not on it, you know? So it was really, really weird. And then I fast forward again to 2005. 2008. 2008, I get a call from Walt Disney Pictures. And they said, we're working on this movie. This is Walt Disney Pictures. I'm with the production company Flying Winnebago Productions. We're working on a new movie called Race to Witch Mountain. Features The Rock. We like your footage from Dan Aykroyd's movie, and we want to use the same clips on this new film. The very beginning of this film is going to have like 100 different UFO clips in the opening segment, and we like 5 of your clips. We got to have these clips. And I was like, went backwards to that. I was like, all right, here we go again, you know. So it was
But
amazing.
That is incredible. But following with that trend, do you have everybody that has been experiencing or had alien experiences that we've been talking to, they seem to have this sense that something's going to come to light
Yeah,
soon.
this was
Do
some.
you get that too?
Yeah, I've shown some things that have not happened yet that I'm kind of worried about, actually. I read this Whitley Strieber's book, Secret School, a while back, and he talked about how, you know, he had an urge in the middle of the night to ride his bike to the woods, and he met with these beings. They showed him some screens, some stuff, and I started thinking about it, and sure enough, I remembered it. I had the same thing. And I remember this. I got on the bike, I went out into the woods, and there was these campfires. And this was when I was probably like 8 or 9 years old. And I was like, you know, I couldn't tell really what was going on, but when I got up there, there was 2 campfires, and there was a group of other kids about the same age, like 8 or 9, you know, maybe only like 5 or 6, maybe 7 at the most. And they were like standing in a row. I just like walked up and got in the row, and there was like, what was really weird about it, that there was like 2 people that were like, they looked like angels, but they looked like human. I don't know, it was weird.
What, you mean like wings?
Like, no, like transparent, like, you know, like a hologram or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then there was like these balls, like hovering orbs, like right next to them, and they're showing pictures on these orbs, and the one was an asteroid or a meteor or something hitting the Earth, and just like, when it hit, like just everything just went black, like you can see like the thing hit, and then it went from this perspective of being on the planet where like the sun just like, everything like went black like an eclipse, like a solar eclipse. And then the other one.
Before you go back, I want to go back. Like,
Yeah, sure.
Do you think, like, they were translucent people, like ghosts, or it's
Okay.
I really don't know what it was, because I don't even know if it was real, because that's the other problem, was after they showed me the second one, there was a third one, I can't even remember what it is, but the second one was like an island in the middle of a dark, dirty ocean, and it looked like a man-made island, and it was like the idea that was projected was like the whole entire world is now being controlled by just this one piece of land. Like whoever is on this land controls the entire world at this point. Like they fast forwarded to what happens after the meteor hits or whatever. Like whoever controls it. And then it was really, what was weird was on the way back. I don't remember getting on the bike and riding home. I remember almost getting home on the bike and getting off the bike and going home, and then when waking up, I was telling myself, was that real? I don't remember. I don't know if that's real or not. It was really weird.
Why do you think they would show you that?
I think that the secret school thing, really. What Whitley described in his book is like abductees, and when they're young, they they'll pick out a time where they're going to show them certain things, like futuristic stuff, that hasn't happened yet. And it may not even be real. It might not be a true fake. It might just be, maybe they're trying to get an emotion out of us. Maybe maybe our brains are on their computer and they're seeing what kind of wavelengths are going on in our head, or what we're thinking.
Because that's one of the things, isn't it? Is apparently they want to feel emotion. That's what fascinates them.
Yes.
And I think Barbara Lamb was talking about the reptilians, that they're capable of long-term relationships, and that they have actually had apparently long-term relationships with humans in the past, but that's what they strive, is to feel emotion. Because when you were talking about the other races earlier, one of them looks like some kind of insect.
Like a praying mantis.
Yeah, and but apparently that particular one, which is probably the most revulsive to most of us, is the one that is most compassionate and is capable of unconditional love. And it is such a strange thought for me, because I cannot stand insects.
Yes.
And if there was a big, huge praying mantis being, I mean, I'd be freaking out.
Yeah.
And yet this is the one that apparently, I mean, that's a head game.
Yeah.
That's a head game. So
Praying mantises aren't scary or anything.
just
Very peaceful.
They're just weird looking.
Yeah,
Scary
just-
looking, but I don't know. If there was a huge one the size of that table, I'd be kind of scared. Like, is this thing gonna eat me or what?
So, like, have you been scanned to see if you have any chips? Or...
No, I wanted to do that last year at that tent that they had out there, but I wasn't really.
Why, are you nervous about what you might find? Or...
No, I would do it. I would do it. Those guys are all about taking your $40, though. So I'll do a free one.
But because it's interesting, because a lot of people have so many different theories about why people have chips, whether it's for tracking. Some people said, like you were saying, maybe they're uploading stuff from your mind.
I think it's a multi thing. It could be for health purposes. It could be.
People have said that they've been abducted and they've come back with enhanced abilities, whether it's psychic abilities or they've been healed from something. One person I was speaking to yesterday said that every once in a while they would start to upgrade. It just sounds weird, because you look at the brain as organic matter, and then it talks about the chips in there, and it's upgrading the human brain. I'm just imagining this little alien going, okay, check.
But isn't that the whole thing anyways? They always say we only use 10% of our brain.
That's true.
So couldn't we use the other percentage to heal or to make more brain cells or whatever?
Absolutely, because then that would bring it, like I said, the common pattern here seems to be that consciousness is the missing link. And if we are only using 10% of our brains, and conditioning, like you said, if there's only a couple of thousand people attending this International UFO Congress in 2013 in a town that's got 5 million, then that conditioning, people are growing up being told, oh, you can't be talking about aliens, and people think you're crazy. So we learn to shut down.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's almost like the society in Hollywood says, okay, it's okay if you want to watch it in a movie, but when you try to say that some of these things could be real, then that's when you're looked at like you're crazy or something. But the opposite's true, because if you look at the weight of the UFO literature and then all the work that's been done on UFOs over the last like 50 years, you can't deny it. I mean,
Right.
there's, you know, millions of photographs, millions of videos that have been shot of UFOs. If only one of them's a real alien ship, then that's all you need is one.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
But if you think about the way you described your experiences, you know, your hand being held and then
Yeah.
shadows at the end of the bed, I mean, it's almost paranormal, but which just seems to be a lot more accepted in society. So there could be a lot more people out there that have had a UFO experience, but they're just saying, oh, it's paranormal, and
Like
I'm
myself.
okay with that, you know,
Yeah.
and then they don't even check for scars, or they don't read the books, and they don't educate themselves.
Right.
They just
Because,
chalk it up as paranormal.
you know, I was just telling Richard Dolan in the other video, I've had psychic predictions all my life. I've had involuntary astral projection, which is what I called it, but now I'm thinking maybe it was an astral projection. Maybe I woke up before I should have done.
Well, they astrally can abduct you too, did you know that?
No, that's what we were
Right.
wondering. When people, if they're not going underground and they're going up into a ship, we're trying to work out what would the effects be on the human body. How do they get the person from point A to point B?
Okay. Well, I've had an astral abduction, but it wasn't successful. However, there is a Betty Andreessen in I think it's phase 2, or the Watchers, I believe it's in the Watchers. She's lying on her couch, and an alien appears like right next to her couch, and he pushes there's like a little machine on his belt. He pushes a button, and she pops out of her body, and she's standing right next to him, and she's looking at herself lying on the couch. And she said, "What did you do?"
Oh my goodness,
And
I've done that.
And he said, "We're taking you astrally right now. This is not a physical abduction. This is an astral abduction." And she said, "How did you do it?" It's like it's their technology. They have the technology to do it. You know.
Like energy, you mean like if the soul, or I assume that's the soul that comes out of the body,
Yeah.
if that's energy, so they have that.
There's something in their
That's
technology, like a garage door opener on his
Right.
belt. He pushes a button, and the machine has the capability to capture your astral body inside your physical body, pull it out, and stand it right next to him. And now he's looking at you. You're looking at your body lying on the couch, and now you're looking back at him, and now you're wondering, how did you get over here? And when you're looking at yourself, and he's telling you, okay, you're coming to the ship this way this time. And that happened to her a few times. Most of her times, she was abducted physically, but a few times they did that. And it's technology. And that shows us that we can leave our bodies ourselves physically with astral travel, but that proves that. But it
That
also
happens
proves
to me.
that they can do that with technology as well. And they might even be able to do it without technology, which is even more scarier. Some races might be able to. But the way that they did it was with some sort of machine. That's how they got her out.
Because I did that when I was.
Put her back in. Wait, does she do
Well,
that?
they went into the ship and they put her.
Yeah, what are they experimenting on then?
Well, they put her into some sort of. They put her inside the tube with all sorts of like jelly stuff, this white stuff. You'd have to read the book, but I don't know what they were doing.
Because yeah, you're thinking
There's-
if they're trying to make some new race, if that was
Yeah.
what their goal was, that they would want to be working on the physical body.
Mhm. Unless they separate
Unless
her soul
consciousness-
Yeah, this
and
must
they
have been
can
a
work on
different
the physical
experiment.
body.
Or something. but-
Yeah,
Never
because
knowing.
if you then take the consciousness out, pretty much that body, even though it's functioning,
Yeah.
it's not going to have, the body won't have memory
Yeah.
of
That's
whatever
interesting.
they've done.
Yeah, and possible.
I know.
And
Right?
it's unbelievable because it's so incredible because the book is the books span 5 books. Betty
Wow.
Andreessen phase 1, phase 2, and then the Watchers 2, and then the Andreessen Legacy, and the parts where she talks about her being out of her body, being abducted. The artist renders like an invisible Betty, and then there's the real Betty on the couch, and then
Oh,
there's
I know, yeah.
the invisible one right there
Right.
with the alien. It's kind of like Wonder Woman with the invisible jet or something.
Right.
It's just amazing because it's totally conceivable but especially after all these stories of astral travel,
Right.
to know that somebody has designed a technology to make you astral travel without you wanting to, so they can take you astrally somewhere, and your body's like resting peacefully on the couch, in like some sort of suspended animal.
Yeah, I was
So,
gonna say, is it
but-
similar to somebody that's in a coma?
But they
Yeah,
would, I mean,
pretty
you take
much.
consciousness, and I assume that the vital organs continue. But then, at that point, once again, if those aliens have got her soul, all communication then must be subconscious.
Because
Correct.
if somebody would have walked in the room and tried to wake her up, she
She's
wouldn't
not
wake
gonna
up.
wake
Right.
up.
They would have had to rush her to the hospital,
Right.
and then by the time the aliens got back, they'd go, where's your body? And then they would have had to locate her and put her back in and find, so.
Do you think that rather than them tell us information, that they just kind of leave us little breadcrumbs
Yeah.
to follow? Because what we've had, the abductions, crop circles, cattle mutilations, and now, I don't know, I mean, these stories that you're just saying, I mean, how far back does that date where people are actually being able to recall to that kind of detail with, is it since the 1950s that alien abductions, was there any history before the 1950s?
I think the first case was the Betty and Barney Hill case,
Right.
but before that, the contactees stories were that they weren't being abducted, they were being freely contacted and given information. And then the abductees thing started happening later, because the contactee thing was generally a humanoid thing, and the abduction thing was the small gray figure thing.
Right.
So they're two different beings, and like you were saying with crop circles, that might be a completely different race, we don't know.
Right.
Cattle mutilations too, that might be a totally different thing too that we don't know about either, but it could be alien as well. So we could be dealing with several different types of entities with different agendas, and like the cattle mutilation thing, they might not be interested at all in humans, but they're interested in cattle for some reason. Because
yeah.
they need their blood for something, I think. And if you look at similarities between human blood and cattle blood, maybe they're trying to, maybe they have a hybrid that needs that type of
Yeah, the
something in the
plasma or
blood. Yeah,
something.
exactly. I don't know.
So, and going back to about hybrids, do you believe they're hybrids on this planet, or do you think they're kind of being harvested and kept somewhere else?
They're probably, I would say that if there's military installations and they have, working contracts with ETs, they're probably hybrids in like various installations. Walking freely down the street and stuff like that, I don't know. You would think that they'd be recognized like right away. If they look different, but if they don't, then
Because from the sound of it, these blondes,
they look just like us.
yeah, so then if we have hybrids of those,
Then they could be walking the streets, just like I heard a tale that the president met one, Eisenhower met one in the White House, and the guy just looked just like me and you, like a regular person, but they said he was an alien from a different planet. So.
that's the second time Eisenhower's name has come up in the
Yeah.
last 2 days.
Yeah, because if you look at Timothy Good's Above Top Secret, he's got at the end of the book, he's got all the documents that were released from the Freedom of Information Act, and it clearly shows that the government was in contact with these guys. And it doesn't tell you much detail because most of it's blacked out, but they leave little breadcrumbs, like the government does it too. It'll say something like, next time we need to get the crash disk before the Army does, was one statement the president said to the CIA. Next time we need to get the crash disk before the Army does. This shows you that the president has no control over the Army, because they've captured past saucers, and now they have the saucers, and now they don't want to listen to the president. They just figured something out the president and the rest of the world don't know anything about it, and they're not going to tell you now, because you need 20 levels above top secret that the president doesn't have just to see what we have. So the president's not going to ever see this, and that's how their information is dealt with, like that.
But ultimately, what do you think the aliens want? I mean, is it to take over our planet, to enslave us, to...
Depending on which aliens they are, I think there may be the Star Trek, prime directive, like you can't interfere with this planet. There's
Right.
certain things you can do, and there's certain things you can't do.
Right.
So I think that's maybe what's happening here.
But then if you're talking about Star Trek, do you think these alien races are at war with each other at any time?
I
Or do you
think they are.
Oh
And
gosh,
that's
so
just from recent activity that's
Really?
kind of led me to believe that.
what's the activity?
I've been getting lots of reports, and I've been hearing lots of reports about loud banging, loud noises in the sky, like thunder, like noise, like bombs, like described as a war in the sky, and by Linda Howe on Dreamland, and this has been going on and on for the last year, that people are reporting loud noises. And it's like two houses in the neighborhood will hear this huge loud noise in the middle of the night, and it'll wake everybody up, and the next day they'll go into the neighbor's house and say, did you hear that? And like the house on that side didn't hear it, the house 2 doors down didn't hear it, but the house next door heard it. So it's like, it's almost like right over, the houses, but there's something that's causing them not to be able to, hear it, past this point. But then there's other cases she was talking about where the whole town hears the noise, and everybody wakes up the next morning, do you hear that? What was that? And they call the military, call the police, no one knows what it was. And
Do you think that the area where you said the 2 houses could hear it, but the others couldn't, is that a case again of where the veil is thinner
yeah.
at those points?
Yeah, and it might mean also that the aliens are trying to communicate with just these people. They don't want anybody else to know what's going on, but these people have to hear this noise because these people need to know that there's something going on. And I don't know why they do this. Why do they pick these people?
Yeah,
It's really mind-boggling to me. But I was going to go back to this 2 days before the conference. I received a phone call from this guy that said that Sunday night, this last Sunday night, over where I live in Glendale, his son-in-law filmed something amazing. He said he filmed UFOs shooting lasers at each other, and he said it looked like a war in the sky. And it was exactly what Linda's witness described on Whitley Strieber's Dreamland 3 weeks ago. He said that he kept on hearing loud banging noises in the sky. He looked out and looked up, and he couldn't see anything, but he kept hearing the noises, and he said it sounded like there was a war in the sky. Same thing this guy said that he videotaped.
You know what's so disappointing is even no matter how advanced we get, apparently the one thing we learn from history is that we never learn. Still
Right.
war, still
Exactly.
fighting. You would have hoped that we could have evolved to a point that
Yeah.
we could understand that we can achieve more with peace.
Right.
So
And
what?
And if these guys are firing at other aliens, shooting at each other, then obviously they never learned either.
No, it's
You
so
know,
disappointing. That's actually more crushing and disappointing than anything else I've heard. But then what do you think they're battling over? It's the same kind of thing,
It
resources?
might not even be, it might be our best top secret military UFO
us.
battling an alien UFO.
true. That would be
And
typical, yeah.
That may be,
Yeah.
it may be happening.
Then there's still hope.
Because back in the 90s, we had the STS footage. Remember the UFO moving out of the way of a firing
Yeah, oh,
rocket?
yeah.
You know, and so they were just toying, the UFOs were just toying with our military. Say, oh, you want to fire the missile? Okay, well, we'll just wait till the last second just to move out of the way.
Yeah,
You know,
I was
waste
gonna
$1 million on that shot right there. because it's not
Exactly.
gonna hurt us.
I was actually going to say that. Why is it that you think that they intercept and disarm our nuclear warheads? Is that because to show us that they can, to test the strength of our defense, or maybe to try and help protect us from ourselves? Or maybe the nuclear warheads, when they fire them into space, do just as much damage in space as they do down here?
It could have been what I think, well, a lot of that stuff had happened after World War II, after
Right.
the first 2 bombs went off, and I think that's what happened, is those first 2 bombs was like a cosmic awakening to them that, okay,
Right.
these people mean business now.
Right.
They know something now.
Right.
So we're going to show up. And then the years following, there was those cases where they shut down all of the nukes and at the plant, and you can hear them on the radio. These are, recorded conversations from the military, packed away in Project Blue Book, that we weren't supposed to know about until years later, when we were offered the Freedom of Information Act to get all this stuff, to find out what they knew and when they knew it. And
But then what's funny is they shut down Project Blue Book and said, oh, okay, ETs are not a threat, or there's...
But however, that's the funny thing is they had 701 cases that still could not be identified.
Right.
You know, even though they threw all the rest they explained the rest of them away, which was bad too, because a lot of those cases probably were unidentified too.
So, why, do you have a theory why UFOs crash?
Why they crash, that's a good, I really don't know why a UFO would crash. It wouldn't make any
Really?
sense to me because,
They're so advanced, apparently.
yeah, unless they were shot down, like Bob
That's what-
said in Area 51, when he said they shot him the 9 saucers, he said one of them had a hole shot through it.
That was when I was speaking to Richard, I hypothesized that maybe that's what it is our military or the government so want to know how those craft operate, that if they can shoot them down, maybe they can study the technology, but that's
I think they
such
could
a
shoot them
sad-
down under certain conditions. They have like
Right.
a pulse beam weapon of some sort that interferes with their gravitation. Because when the Zeta's craft is running with the antimatter distortion field, it's running, when it's close to the Earth's surface, it's running at the gravity A wave, the big gravity A wave, and when they're in space, they're using the smaller gravity A wave. There's 2 different gravity waves. So the other one is, you know, the things underneath the craft, those things that go back and forth like that. Those
Right.
are the fluctuators that project the gravity. That's why when the UFO becomes invisible, that's when it's reached the capacity of the gravity A wave, one of them. So it
Okay.
becomes invisible.
You have incredible experience, so I'm going to tell you 2 different things I've had. I don't know what they are, and it's only happened in the last, 4 or 5 months?
Yeah.
I got 2 within weeks of each other. First one, it's noon. I'm not thinking about anything to do with Mysterious World TV. I'm a horse trainer as well. Driving from my farm, I look up in the sky about 30 or 40 feet above me. There's this huge, grayish, silverish, I don't want to say it's a ball. It was almost, my first thought was it was a portal, it was a wormhole, it was something weird. And it had a silvery, yellowy
Like
halo.
Yeah.
Right. And
That's
I'm
it.
driving and I'm looking at it and it's not moving. It's just there. And so then I immediately am saying, okay, has it been raining? Is there a car coming over the hill? Does someone have one of those big round mirrors in their driveway that could have refracted? And it disappeared. And I'm like, okay, bleh. And then it reappeared again.
Yeah.
And then I pull over my car, and then it goes. But it wasn't 3-dimensional like a orb.
No, it becomes transparent at that point. When it's at the highest frequency, the UFO will almost become transparent,
Oh, it
where
was-
you can see through it.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. So that was a UFO?
Yeah.
Okay, and then the second one was really crazy. It was a couple of weeks later, at 9:15 on a Monday morning. I'm driving down a little country road. There's usually got cops, and there's usually other cars, but it was just me. And I'm driving along this little country road, and I look up, and it really wasn't very high, maybe 100 feet above me, a jumbo jet, but not moving, and it's silent, and it's just staying there. So I'm driving
Oh,
along
wow.
thinking, this isn't on a flight path, and then I thought, okay, are the wheels down? Is this an emergency landing? I'm ex-Royal Air Force, so I know a little bit. So the wheels aren't down, the nose is up, it's white and it's got a red, Angie photoshopped it, put it on our Facebook page, Mysterious World TV Facebook page, and it's got like a red triangular, no, is it like an elongated rectangle, no serial numbers, couldn't see any passengers on there. That's how close I could see the
Wow.
windows. And it had, again, some kind of halo around it, as if like, you know, when clouds are thinning and the sun's coming through, it was like that, not a single noise. And I'm
Right.
driving like 3 miles an hour and I'm watching it going, what's going on with this? And then pull my car over because I'm thinking, okay, maybe now I should get a photograph. So as I get my camera and I go to turn around, it's gone.
Wow, yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, so what's that? So then we put it on our Facebook
Yeah.
and we said, does anybody know any pilots in the airline? Can anyone identify this insignia on the tail fin? And someone sent us a forum that goes back years and years and years with all these people that had seen a white jumbo jet, red tail fin, making no noise,
Maybe it was
weird.
a ghost plane or something.
We
you know?
thought ghost plane, but then someone else also theorized that perhaps they can either have a cloaking device, or maybe they will transform themselves in, like if they were tracking me. If they were tracking me, I'm not good with that. I'm like Scooby-Doo, I'm like, zoinks, and I'm out of here.
Well, when you were mentioning the airplane thing, my mind went to Ellen Crystal, the Hudson Valley Sightings. And she's out she wrote a book called The Hudson Valley Sightings. And she went out into the Hudson Valley and she described the same thing. Sometimes they would see huge triangle-shaped UFOs fly right overhead and go straight down into the ground, like there was an underground base. And then other times she'd see a boomerang wing like that, and then do the same thing. And then other times, what they saw was a regular-looking airplane flying slow, but when it got right over the head of them, there was no noise, there was no FAA lights blinking at all. And then when the airplane knew that they were looking at it, knowing that that is an airplane, but it's not doing things that airplanes do,
Right.
so we know it's not an
Right.
airplane. When they thought that, it changed into a triangle before their eyes.
Because that's what someone said was, somebody actually said to me, maybe it shape-shifted
Yeah.
to something that wouldn't shock you as much. Well, you know what, 100 feet off the ground in a jumbo jet, nowhere near a flight path, that shocks me. Just
Yeah.
You might sort of show me the UFO because,
Yeah.
you know, at that point. But now I think about it, it didn't have the FAA lights either.
Yeah.
It was just this big, white, silent, freaky thing.
Wow.
And actually, because I called you straight, I was
Yeah.
still pulled over.
I'd like to
when-
see it sometime.
Yeah, we'll show,
Go back.
because Angie photoshopped what I described and put it up there, and we had a lot of comments on it, but that forum was a real eye-opener, because what a strange thing to do. And then someone just said, well, it's tracking you. I want to hear that.
I think a lot of times they use the cloaking of themselves to look like a plane, of course,
Right.
so that they can disguise themselves in our sky.
They need to learn about flight paths.
Yeah, they don't know anything. The weird thing about flight passes in like around the year 2000, there was a red UFO over here in Mesa that would come back over and over again, like maybe 3 nights a week, in the same spot. And the problem of it is it would sit right in the middle of the flight path where the jets would come in for landing.
Oh.
And after about 20 minutes one time, all of a sudden the planes started going the other direction. And so they rerouted the flight traffic away from the thing. So the towers knew that it was there. And we called the news, and we had Channel 10 in our backyard alley with the tower up on their thing. And they were like, yeah, we're out in your backyard waiting for the red light. This was like it turned into like a block party situation. But we'd be
Wow.
updating the footage on my
Nice.
website like almost every few days.
Any excuse for a party.
Yeah.
That is like really, yeah, well, those are the only two things I had. And just to add, when I talked that I had the astral projection, was a couple of weeks ago, my hairdresser was washing my hair, and then she suddenly stopped right here and she said, "What's that?" And I said, "What?" She said, "Did you bump and fall your head? Did you fall and bump your head?" And I said, "No, why?" And she said, "She got a lump." And so I was feeling it, and it's completely gone now. And there was like a little, so I can describe it, it was like a little stony chip thing.
I had one of those too.
But it's gone.
in
I'm feeling
2008.
it now.
I had one right in the back of my
Oh
neck.
no, it's
right
there.
here.
No, it's still there. Oh my God, I found it.
Oh.
live on TV. And then
You have to get that.
I know, we're gonna look at
yeah,
it.
my $40 out, and and then I woke up a couple of nights ago, and I was completely, just one side of my body completely paralyzed.
Oh, wow.
So, but that, but then I'm like, did I sleep funny? But I mean, how? I don't know, because no, it happened twice. So that was really, really, it took me about 20 minutes, and that's painful when you're starting to get really bad. But
Right.
I don't know what that was. So,
They're on you now because you're taking interest in them.
But that's what I'm
That's what I'm
saying.
saying. If you take an interest in them, then they're going to take an interest in you.
So they're watching.
So
the
they're
whole
watching
time.
you now. They know.
We
It's
have-
it's a conscious thing because what we think they can hear and see, because.
Well, we're doomed because this is all we talk about. With every single, we've done like 60 episodes.
Because when you were saying the sound of the house, do you remember when I had that at my
Yes,
house?
yes.
And at the time, I had no idea. And I had no idea it was anything. It was such a loud sound where we stopped and we searched and we walked outside.
I remember you called it.
Yeah, and as the whole house shook with the sound. Like,
Yeah.
And then that was it.
But the
I
funny-
didn't find anything.
What's weird about it though is when they were talking about this, I started thinking back in my life, and the same things had happened to me throughout my own entire life. I remember when I was a kid hearing these big, every now and then like a huge noise in the middle of the night, like it sounded like a semi-truck went off the road and rolled over or something, and I would wake up the next morning, did anybody hear that? And no one knows, you know, what it was, or no one heard it, or even, you know, it was like.
It's so funny now when you start to, we interviewed John Tenney, and one of the things that he was saying was, there was the one with the buzz, Michelle Griffin talked about the buzzing noise that came with astral projection. So I'm just thinking about what you were saying with the kind of buzzing noise. And then John Tenney was saying that whenever somebody spots a cryptid, it's always accompanied by a flash of light, because that's the only thing that has personally stopped me going on a Bigfoot hunt, is because my gut feeling is they're not actually living here. That if it's an interdimensional being, or if we're getting a glimpse into another dimension, we're completely wasting our time traipsing around in the dark, knocking on wood, if it's something that, if you're just in the right place, right time to get a glimpse into another dimension, or even if Bigfoot is an alien. I don't know, that's how I felt about that. But what I was going with that is they're starting to see patterns, but this is under paranormal research. So how wonderful if we have people like yourself say, this are the traits that accompanied it, and then we look at the paranormal and say, now, hey, maybe we're dealing with the same thing.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so
I think
wow.
I think we are. I mean, the evidence is there that all these phenomena are connected in some way.
Right.
Because, I mean, aliens, the higher technology of an alien species, they would have more knowledge of the paranormal, right? They would know more knowledge about ghosts than we know, and they would probably know more about God than we know.
Right.
And if, you know, and who is their God? Is it the same as the God that we have here?
And now they even have a whole breakdown of society, like right there, and you're like, hold on, wait.
But
Because
they're creators. I mean, obviously, you know, we didn't get here just because. I mean, if you look at all of them, you know, like the missing link, like you were saying.
Right. Yes.
If you look back at the history of man, the common day man, it seems like we just appeared here out of nowhere.
Right.
Over the last few thousand years.
The blonde hair and the blue eyes.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the Neanderthals, you know, didn't they had red hair or dark hair? But it was a very specific look. And then, so that was one of the big questions: is where did the blonde hair, blue eyes come from?
Right. And just a common, like our, you know, like you're saying, because they were different. The people,
Right.
you know, before,
Yeah.
like Adam and Eve or whatever, you know,
Yeah.
they were a different type of a being here that was here, like the giants.
Yeah.
And
Do you have any theories yourself, or do you have any feelings about the ancient alien theories, about the biblical interpretation, and they've been visiting us since the dawn of man?
yeah, I think, you know, they have, but I really don't have any take on it because,
Right.
you know, I really don't know, to be honest with you. I mean,
Yeah. No,
I
I'm with
wish
you there.
I really
yeah.
wish I knew the answers. Like, you know, that's why I'm in the video, because I can take my camera, I can go outside, and I can get something flying around out there that shouldn't be flying around, and then I, you know, can put it on the website for anybody to download and see.
And what is your website? by the
My
way?
website's ufosoverphoenix.com.
Okay.
So it's really easy to remember. And then over the last few years, I came out with another website, ufofootage.net, and that site is dedicated to like me and other skywatchers' footage. The other site's just my footage, and then this one is kind of with like everybody. The UFOs Over Phoenix site, though, if somebody does videotape a UFO over Phoenix and they send me a link to their YouTube channel, I'll put it right on the homepage with everybody else that sent me links of stuff like what I shoot. So.
That's really, really fantastic. And can they buy your DVDs on your website?
Yeah, they can buy it. PayPal is on there. So.
That's really awesome. Did you want to ask your quick?
Sure.
Go ahead. We explain what we do.
We just ask everybody a rapid fire set of questions,
Okay.
just a little insight into your personality. That's really it's off topic from what we've been talking about. It's just an extra little bonus. So.
Okay, cool.
Rapid fire.
All right.
All right, ready?
Yeah.
What is your favorite word?
My favorite word would be, I guess, love would be my favorite word.
That's nice.
I don't think you've heard that one before.
No,
Okay, good.
What
I want
is-
to be original.
What is your least favorite word?
Would have to be hate,
Yeah.
yeah.
What turns you on?
Different types of colors, I think, have like emotional reactions, like different.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
like-
interesting, yeah. What turns you off?
Probably like scary movies, like Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Freddy
Like
Krueger,
horror, yeah.
Jason, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. I don't like that stuff.
What sound or noise do you love?
Like music. I like different types of music.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Like every now and then I get like a high pitch like ringing in my ear, like real loud to the point where I can't even hear in and out of the ear that's ringing in. I don't like that sound.
Implants.
Turn it off, guys. It's too loud.
What's your favorite TV show?
Well, right now I would say probably that Fact or Fake show because I was on the first episode of their show, you know,
Ah,
Ben Henson's
okay,
show.
yeah.
I was on their very first season, very first episode, and I really liked the show. And then when I was on the show after that, Chasing UFOs, episode 5, I watched that show and I liked the episode I was on, but I hated all the other episodes. So it was like, and you know, I'm sharing a room, roommating right now with James Fox, the guy that's on the show that quit the show. He's like, he told his producers, I hate the show.
Oh,
You know, I'm the host, but I hate it. I'm not doing it anymore, he told them.
Wow.
So they're going to be looking for new people or the show's canceled. I don't know.
Huh.
So
Wow.
it's either canceled or there'll be a new crew next year.
Huh.
So
And your final question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you get to the pearly gates?
I made it. And I can't go wrong there. Right?
That's right.
That's it. That's the final question. And you've just been such a pleasure. You have told us stuff that we haven't heard before and opened our minds. That was fantastic.
Awesome. I'm glad to be here. This is an awesome show.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.